In this video, I'm going to be talking about the mind-body connection in relation to swollen lymph nodes. If you are watching this video, there's a good chance that you are dealing with swollen lymph nodes. Now, I shared my own personal story with how I healed my swollen lymph nodes, which I'll link in the description below, that approaches it from a much more spiritual awakening perspective, but I wanted to dive in today to something more science-based.
But first, I would greatly appreciate if you could click that subscribe button and the bell to be notified every time that we post new content.
So chances are, if you're dealing with prolonged swollen lymph nodes, you've seen a doctor and you've had numerous tests done. But what happens when all the tests come back as you're fine? There's no really problem going on here. What do we do then in these situations, which is also what happened to me? So you're left with no reason as to why this is happening because we are only looking at the physical causes through these tests. So today I wanted to shed light on that, on what I have found to be extremely transformative for my overall health and well-being, and how you can apply that to your lymph nodes. I'm offering this as a different perspective, a different point of view if you're feeling hopeless or out of control or just feeling plain lost without a direction as to what your body needs. Now, what if I told you that the things that could be getting in the way of your lymph nodes resolving are actually emotions and mental patterns? Now, hang tight because I'll dive more into that now. In the culture that I grew up in, mind and body tend to be separated. But this simply cannot be. Mind and body are intrinsically connected. And if you loop the soul into that too, mind, body, soul, they're all connected. You cannot have one without the other. So why so often are we only treating the body, the physical symptoms, when we're not taking into consideration the mental and emotional connections? Most likely it's because you're not aware of it, and I wasn't either. But this is a crucial part to the healing puzzle that many aren't aware of that creates deep and lasting healing. So our physical symptoms are treated apart from taking into account the mental and emotional connections. And this is leaving a huge piece of the puzzle out for lasting healing and getting to the root cause of issues, including swollen lymph nodes. So here's the thing, you've probably been treating your swollen lymph nodes through physical means, right? So you've been going through all the tests from your doctors, and maybe you're feeling like you don't have an answer yet, and you're going to the worst case scenario, the big C word. The problem with this is when we live in this all or nothing mentality, it doesn't leave any other room for answers to come into our awareness. But there's a whole host of other things that could be going on, right? Like not just that worst case scenario. And treating it through physical means is great. So maybe you're doing herbs or acupuncture, supplements, or massages, things like that, which are wonderful. But I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that chances are you are not treating it through your mental and emotional health. And more than likely, if you are dealing with swollen lymph nodes right now, you potentially are running on a shaky foundation of suppressed emotions and destructive mental patterns that have not yet been processed. And because they have not been processed, they are stressing your body out, not to mention you. And because everything is connected, mind, body, soul, these root cause emotional and mental patterns are manifesting, creating, or perpetuating these physical symptoms, which in this case would be swollen lymph nodes. The HeartMath Institute shares that a key to sustaining good health, optimal function, and resilience is the ability to manage one's emotions. So by learning to strengthen our emotional intelligence and process these emotions, we're actually strengthening our immunity. If we don't know how to process these things, it continues to contribute to the overall internal stress, which then manifests on the exterior. So if you want help in getting started with helping your body process some of the stress that it's carrying around, I've created a virtual mini workshop to help with just that, which you can find in the description below. Now, there's a good chance if you've been dealing with swollen lymph nodes for a while, you are feeling stressed out and afraid. And I don't blame you, I've been there too. But did you also know that you are mentally, physically, and emotionally stressed out too? And what do I mean by that? So we are always carrying along stress within our body. It's just a fact of life. And so often we are not taught on how to deal with and process this stress versus just manage it. And here's where I want to connect the body and the mind. So, when we are stressed out, it's a reflection of our internal state because we are internally stressed. And sometimes we're not even aware of it. It has to really kind of amp up to get our attention most times, but it's there. You see, there's a part of our brain called the amygdala, which is responsible for the survival mechanism. So it triggers a fight or flight or freeze response in our body. So if something feels unsafe, it triggers us to either fight or run away.
In an article published by the Harvard Medical School, they explain understanding the stress response in the brain. And they found that chronic activation of this survival mechanism impairs overall health. A stressful situation, whether something environmental, such as a looming work deadline, or psychological, such as a persistent worry about losing a job, can trigger a cascade of stress hormones that produce well-orchestrated physiological changes. When someone experiences a stressful event, the amygdala, an area of the brain that contributes to emotional processing, sends a distress signal to the hypothalamus. This area of the brain functions like a command center, communicating with the rest of the body through the nervous system so that the person has the energy to fight or flee. Repeated activation of the stress response takes a toll on the body. Research suggests that chronic stress contributes to high blood pressure, promotes the formation of artery clogging deposits, and causes brain changes that may contribute to anxiety, depression, addiction, and more.
But what's also interesting is strong emotions can also trigger this response, because there's some times where emotions come at us and we don't know how to deal with them. Maybe it's fear or grief or anger, and we're not sure how to actually deal with it. And so it makes us feel unsafe or overwhelmed. And when that happens, it triggers this stress response, sending our body and nervous system into hyperdrive. And when this happens, we're not actually allowing ourselves to feel and process the emotions. Instead, our body shuts down. It kind of goes on overdrive, and these emotions then get stuck or suppressed inside of the body. And when we have these suppressed emotions and they haven't been processed and they're sitting inside of our physical body, they can create health problems over time. And when we are in this heightened state, it puts more and more stress on the natural processes that occur within our body, within our emotional center, within our mind, because it's all connected. And so this makes healing take more time. So this is highlighting how there are mental and emotional connections that then manifest as physical problems. So there are certain specific internal stressors, emotional and mental root causes, that are manifesting as swollen lymph nodes. And so often we aren't told this, it's never addressed, but it's really a crucial key in healing our lymph nodes so that it doesn't keep happening again and again. It puts an end to that cycle of re-triggering because we're getting to the root causes of the problem. So let's give a metaphor for this.
So we have these suppressed emotions and mental patterns under the surface inside the box here, right? Like a jack in the box. And let's say a trigger comes along, right? And that's represented by cranking and cranking on this jack in the box. Well, what happens? The jack in the box pops out, and that's represented as the physical symptom. The physical symptom shows up, although I'm sure your physical symptoms don't look this friendly as this little flower here. And instead of treating the root of the problem by addressing these mental and emotional patterns, by just treating the physical symptoms, we're basically just pushing the jack back into the box, therefore suppressing it. And when the next trigger comes along, again, crank, 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 bam, the symptoms keep popping up. And this is what I mean about the cycle perpetuating. So we want to get to the root cause so that we can put an end to this cycle of triggering.
So how do we start to help our body out in processing this stress? My favorite way to do this is using a healing tool called Emotional Freedom Technique, or EFT. And when doing it, it actually sends a calming signal to the amygdala and lets you know that you're safe and it's okay to process your emotions in a constructive and healthy way without re-triggering your body or the stress response. So if you want help in getting started with helping your body process some of the stress that it's carrying around, I've created a virtual mini workshop to help with just that, which you can find in the description below. It's also going to help out your immune system and even boost it. And it will help you start to process your emotions so that they don't keep getting stuck inside your body. Now, I'm not saying that this is the only thing that you need, but it is the perfect complement to other healing modalities. So you may find it helpful for your situation to change your diet, go through a detox, get acupuncture, and the like. And that's great. But I would also add to address the root emotional and mental causes as well. And this will help so that the physical body doesn't just keep getting re-triggered over and over. Because what's happening is there are mental and emotional patterns at play that are running in the background in the subconscious mind. And when we don't address these, they just keep operating in the background. And every time a trigger comes along, it can then remanifest as the physical symptoms, in this case, swollen lymph nodes. So let me know in the comments below what this illuminated for you with the mind-body connection. And if you enjoyed this video, I encourage you to like it and hit subscribe and the bell below to be notified every time we post new content. I'll see you next time.